I'm joined on stage by airport professionals representing airports at all different stages of their digital transformation.
IoT was a beast when we first started because of all the legacy systems, the different protocols. And once we sorted that out, things got so much easier.
We developed this annual inspection program to uniquely identify each asset.
Especially the part where we maintain the aging facility. Has anyone been to the airport? It's like a Frankenstein. The oldest part of it is about 90 years old.
People mover, automated people mover, pushing and pulling that data into GIS.
That's really great advice, not just for airports, but for all industries. Alrighty, just as everybody gets into their lunch coma, we'll get started. I'm Julie Jernigan. I'm Aviation BIM Manager at architecture and engineering firm RS&H. And I'm joined on stage by airport professionals representing airports at all different stages of their digital transformation journey. So I'll have them introduce themselves and then we'll jump in.
Thank you, Julie. Hello, everybody. My name is Jorge Quiros from PDBM Consulting. We are a BIM consulting firm. We have been involved with LaGuardia, JFK, Newark redevelopment programs, and much recently, over the last 5 years, helping Miami International Airport with its digital transformation, which includes standards, contract language. You see some examples right now, a campus model of the entire airport, in which we include the construction schedule integration and things of that nature. So, Kelly?
And that's your twin right there.
Here you go.
So Kelly Watt, I spoke earlier. It's a repeat video, but I'm with DFW, a contractor, been embedded for 3 years now. So I run our digital twin program, all the road mapping, all the projects, fixed LiDAR installation projects, AI simulation, and machine learning service contracts. But I'm happy to be here and talk to other airport colleagues. And it's a big topic for airports these days. So looking forward to being here.
Hey everyone, my name is Nora Doherty. I'm here from Philadelphia International Airport. I am the Director of Spatial Services at the airport, and that means that my backyard, so to speak, is GIS, CAD, and BIM. We are at the very beginning of our digital transformation at PHL. I thought we were a little bit further along until I saw Kelly's talk, and then I realized that we're just at the very beginning, and that's okay. Super happy to be here. Thank you.
Hey everyone, my name is Pash Sabapramai. I am the Aviation Digital Delivery Lead at CNS Companies and also the BIM to GIS Working Group Lead for Building Smart USA Airport Room. It's a tongueful. And for this panel today, I'm wearing 2 hats. I'm supporting Nora on her initiatives at PHL, but I'm also talking about BIM to GIS and also IFC to GIS on the open BIM side. I think right now where airports are at is everyone's cleaning up their data.
Awesome. Thanks, everybody, for your introductions. And before we jump in, I just wanted to mention that all of us are really part of this Airport Consultants Council BIM subcommittee, and we're working on 2 really important projects, building out an airport-specific asset registry for industry adoption, and also a digital transformation technology case study for Medium Hub Airport here in Florida. So a lot of the stuff that we're working on together with these projects is really relevant to the conversation I think that we're gonna have today. So you might hear a little bit about that, but to get started here, you know, I think with digital transformation, a lot of times the conversation is focused on the what, but I want to get started first with the why. So Jorge, why did your airport see a need for digital transformation, and how did you all define success early on?
Thanks, Julie. So one of the, and I will kind of start with is the why, but the problem, I believe it is, or has to do with understanding what a digital twin is. A digital twin, and I believe we heard this before, earlier today and yesterday. Digital twin means different things for different people at different stages of the project. And that is a challenge. So in the case of airports, and I believe we all agree on this, the digital twin we are looking for is a digital twin for operation and maintenance. And that is the one that is going to live for us or with us for the next 30, 40, or 50 years. And it's important because if you really establish that connection between the model and the twin and have them talk to each other back and forth, is where you're going to start looking for or seeing savings in operations, in maintenance, and things of that nature. So it's important for an airport because eventually in the long term it's going to save them time and money, I guess.
Absolutely. Anybody else thoughts on that?
I think where it started for us is we like to be first all the time. DFW's got a little extra money in their pocket, and they said, well, I like that. We want to be the first to have it. But also that leads to challenges because you're adopting technology rather looking at the business problem first. So I came in, a year after a technology was chosen, and they're moving forward with a project and really start to think about, well, where is the ROI? How do we sat down with finance and mapped out all our projects and looked at, well, what is the expected value we'll get? How do we measure it? It's there, actually. A lot of people, we talk about ROI and how do we establish, well, we're not there yet. We can't measure it. You can forecast it. You can talk to people, understand how they do the work. It's how are we changing the way you do work? And if we were to do it this way as opposed to this way, can we quantify that? And then where are the mistakes that we could evolve, the cost avoidance and mitigation of issues that happen because we don't have the right information.
Yep. Okay, so we're talking about the digital transformation roadmap. So how did your teams approach building the digital transformation roadmap, and what were some of those key phases and milestones? Maybe Nora, you can start that one.
So my background is actually in GIS. So we started with GIS because that's what I know how to do. The digital transformation roadmap began there. So building out authoritative data in GIS was really the first step, but we were really a hodgepodge of data at the airport, and not authoritative data either. It was a challenge just to get authoritative data. So what we needed to do first was clean up our act, right? We were at a point a couple of years ago where we weren't even receiving as-built deliverables from some of our construction projects. We were getting them in CAD. We were getting them as PDF. We weren't even receiving CAD, or definitely we weren't receiving Revit. So just starting there, cleaning up the deliverables process was the first step, changing some of our contract language to make sure that that is included. It's very difficult to do any type of digital transformation or innovation within the confines of a governmental bureaucracy. So lining up your steps there was really the first step, and we're really at the beginning of the process.
What about you, Paul?
Yeah, and I'll just add on to that. So every airport's different. Every airport is either governed by its own self or by the county or the city. So you can't just go from one airport and copy it to the next. So I usually start with like a baseline assessment, see the gaps, see how they function, how the life cycle management works for that airport, if there is one, what data they're managing. And some key phases and milestone that I see in this assessment is doing key stakeholder engagements, getting IT support, that's a big one with PHL, and then also maybe coming up with your CDE, right, your common data environment, and seeing what can plug into that and how you validate that information going into it.
And Kelly, I know you spoke a little bit about this in your presentation earlier, but you all are a little bit further along. What were some of those early?
Yeah, so we had a leadership working group, steering group, that was really driving the vision of where leadership wanted to go. Problem is, they wanted to go a lot of different places. So, taking each one of those project ideas and really digging into them. And I mapped out like a matrix of about 20 different stakeholders of the airport, right from your EVP levels down to your line workers, and understand what was important to them, what they thought the twin was going to get from them, and what was realistic, what it could get for them. And it was interesting when you start to line that up in a matrix to see, well, what are the common threads of where value would be, and map those to the projects that we're looking at. And we bubble graph this all up, and we're able to get to what we ranked as our high priority use cases. But then looking at, let's be realistic. Can we get there? Do we have the infrastructure? Do we have the data, right? What's going to take us to get there? And what's our reasonable proof of concept that we can execute successfully to measure if it's going to be good or not?
So Nora, you all are just kind of getting started on your path towards digital twins. So how does your vision for a digital twin align with your airport's broader operational or strategic goals?
So a couple of years ago, we had a leadership change at the airport, and as one does when there is a leadership change at the airport, they subsequently spent $1 gajillion redoing the strategic plan. So as part of the strategic plan, there were some focus areas, some of them being building for the future, improving the customer experience, enhancing business opportunities, and last but certainly not least was improving our current facility. So I view the digital transformation as kind of a foundational enabler for all of those things, especially the part where we maintain the aging facility. Has anyone been to Philadelphia Airport? Yeah. It's great, but it's like a Frankenstein. The oldest part of it is about 90 years old, and then we just kept slapping terminals onto it, and it's become kind of unwieldy. So, using the digital twin to support that effort is really what people are super excited about, but also improving those other areas as well.
Wonderful. All right. So one of the big things about really getting started early on in your digital transformation roadmap is getting that buy-in and then maintaining it through a cultural change. So how did you all secure buy-in from executive leadership and other stakeholders through your digital initiatives? Nora, you want to start with that?
Sure. My secret to this is knowing the hot button issues for our executive leadership. My boss, specifically, her hot button issue, airport bathrooms. You go to her LinkedIn, it's pictures of airport bathrooms. But she's the one who holds all the money. So guess what we started monitoring first digitally? Airport bathrooms. So, find out what the hot button issues are. Don't do it just because it was, a fancy thing to do. We're solving real issues and solving the issues that matter to the executive leadership. So that was the first way, but also we had some really high dollar, I wouldn't call them catastrophes, but breakdowns in the airport. We're talking broken water pipes, power failures. Like I said, this is a 90-year-old facility. So at a certain point, it becomes less risky to do the digital transformation than staying still and not doing anything or just managing the old way that wasn't working.
What about at Miami? Restrooms are important at Miami.
You know this. Miami is actually renovating 600 restrooms at this point in different phases. So, and as your airport, portions of Miami are really old and they're falling apart. So we are, I believe, all of us on the same page, I guess, on the same boat. But yeah, I mean, I believe you wanted to add on something.
I was just going to agree that, definitely understand leadership interests. At the end of the day, they have a goal, and if you can help them on their journey to meet their goals and meet their business interests and align the strategy to where they want to go, you're going to get them on board. And I struggled with that in these steering groups because you had a dozen different personalities with all a dozen different business interests. But to work with them individually to understand their needs was really important in communication, like just really communicating with them on what they want, where we're going, how we're getting there, how we're measuring it.
Yeah, and I'll just add one more thing. Like on the consultant side, I'm the one providing the ammo to Nora so she can sell it to her executive leadership. So I need to understand the hot button issues and make sure I have the right personnel presenting on the issues and and making sure you understand the room, right? Don't bring a super technical person into a VP level conversation, right? Because they just want to see the visuals and get to the point and the dollar cost, right? So
I swear, the ROI calculator forecasting tool, that was the game changer. When we could take and map those projects, and we looked at historical incidents, events, and we could measure those events. And it was really an AVP of finance that kind of went through it with us, but I was able to help them with, industry studies and what we thought we could do with energy loss and improvements of operational maintenance time, and start to get that on paper. Leadership loves that. It's saying, if I do this, I'll save this. Okay, I'm on board. That's the story I want to hear.
100%. My airport's not doing anything unless they're saving money or making money, period.
I think all airports feel that way.
Or keeping people safe, too.
No, well, that,
Well, that too.
okay.
Yeah, very important.
Just got to qualify
Number
that
one.
right now in the
That
airport.
counts, yes, yes, obviously.
All right, so Kelly, I know cultural change has been huge at DFW. And so what are some of those strategies that you all have used to ensure adoption across disciplines and departments, but also even externally with your consultants? They have to be on board as well.
Yeah, picking your champions. You don't need everyone on board right away. You need to find a few really passionate people, and they're there, and to get them to support that vision and really work with them to kind of build their trust. And the other thing I'd say is get people in the Twin as fast as you can. So make sure your pilot is getting to a stage where you can get people in there, get feedback, because the feedback also allows people to feel like it's part of their tool and their vision, and their feedback helps them to get more involved with it.
And let me add something on what you just said. Picking the right people, especially for the first projects, are key. In Miami, we are in the process of a contractor is building a $120 million parking garage. It's the first time in the history of Miami Airport that they're going to be delivering a project 4 weeks ahead of schedule. And we actually forced the contractor, in addition to finding the right PMs, contract language that you need to use to force the contractor to do it. A very robust set of standards that we built for the airport that actually help on that. But again, they're going to be delivering a project 4 weeks ahead of schedule, which for them was like never happened before. So
Do not wait till the project is done to think about how people are going to use the tool. You have to think about that at the beginning, especially when you have contractors that have KPIs and, well, I'm not contracted to do that. I'm not going to do it, right? So you got to think through that part of it at the beginning and keep that engagement and get them in early.
I want to add something. Sorry. Just seems kind of fundamental, but it wasn't this simple, is having the same team managing all of the geospatial data. Whereas previously, we had one team, the engineering team was handling all of our CAD data, the GIS was in IT, we had some people in planning doing stuff, but really we saw the most change when we consolidated all of those data types and had them being managed by the same team. Headed by
Spoiler
me.
alert, airports have a lot of silos.
Yeah.
And that goes
Breaking down
into like
silos.
program leadership too, right? Because otherwise it's just a project. The project dies after it's completed, whereas a program lives on. So if you don't have someone involved as a program level to drive it and continue to drive it, then it stops at the end of the project.
100%.
yeah, and I was just going to add, you can showcase the consequence of not doing these initiatives, because with a lot of airports now, you have very senior folks retiring, and all that data is in their head, right? They're not, so we need to make sure that data lives on. We can't leave it to one person in facilities knowing how to turn off or turn on certain operations within the airport.
And documentation.
Yeah.
Documenting, this is what I always say, right? What's going to happen if we all
win
win the lottery? Somebody's got to be able to come in and fill our shoes. So documentation, we can't have that single champion.
And we're all feeling immense pressure with the growth of travel. And that means we have to deal with the facilities we have today until we build the facilities for tomorrow. So you have to be able to do more with your infrastructure than you've ever done before. And that's a pressure that they can recognize.
All right, so let's talk about some of the key technologies. What are some of the foundational technologies, such as BIM or GIS? Posh, what would you suggest prioritizing first?
Yeah, so every airport's different, right? So I'll speak for PHL right now. When we looked at the assessment, we talked about silos earlier. Identifying the biggest silo and then focusing on that. So for PHL, that's the geospatial space. Not that all the data within GIS was current, but it has more current data than the other silos. And I like what Mark said yesterday about instead of knocking down all the different silos, let's bridge them together, right? So you look at different data sources and API connections that you can do. So in airport terms, people mover, automated people movers, like pushing and pulling that data into GIS. So that's where we prioritize at PHL is seeing, all right, if we have GIS as our CDE or one of them, like what other data sources can we push and pull into GIS? And even if there's no API connections, we have other ETL tools, like we ramped up FME workbenches from Safe Software to mediate some of that stuff.
All right, so Nora, how did you decide whether to develop capabilities in-house or partner with outside vendors for implementation?
Well, that decision was made for me because we just don't have the staff to do it in-house. However, you know, it would have been kind of one thing to put out an RFP and say, do this for us, you know? But one thing I don't like is having the tail wag the dog at the airport. So I'm overseeing the vendor and consultants who are doing this. And so I'm trying to be as involved as I can be while leaving the delegated tasks to the professionals. Yeah.
What about in Miami?
In the case of Miami, they're relying a lot on us to provide that service. They do have a support group, but it's really the support group that takes care of documenting legacy data. The key is that eventually we're going to start transitioning knowledge to them so they can handle ACC, they can handle models, they can do technical support. Slow process, but that's the intention eventually.
Yes, yeah. I think with some of these larger airports, it is important that they're able to develop some of those internal capabilities for it to be able to to withstand the time.
And Posha just mentioned the institutional knowledge that eventually it's going to get lost when people retire. So the idea of Miami of passing that knowledge to the support group is that eventually all that data gets associated to an asset management system, which at this point they don't have. So what we're doing is preparing all these models for the next 3, 4, 5 years. When they decided for the asset management tool, they can just plug in these models and all that data can be used and consumed for them. So.
Okay, so back to the silos. You know, we all operate in silos, but what has been in an airport setting, what's been the most challenging aspect of integrating those silos?
I'll say IoT was a beast when we first started because of all the legacy systems, the different protocols, 4 different controls platforms. So the struggle there was get the data architecture and sort that out. And once we sorted that out, things got so much easier, right? Because we had a plan on how data flows, how it's normalized, and then the data is all consistent so which we can run analytics on it. And so we chose to normalize to MQTT, which is a protocol or just a naming language, which is about 1/10 the size of our BACnet. And we were able to safely bring that to a cloud using a broker. So just that architecture there made things extremely scalable. And we could explain to our vendors how we want to have our data and create a new standard. So that took us quite a bit of time before we figured it out. It seems really simple looking back.
Anybody else on silos?
I would just say that, you know, sorry, I'm blanking out.
I'll cover you.
Yeah.
So one thing that, and Miami is not quite there yet, but we found really important getting this BIM task force that will cross departments and divisions so they can talk to each other. That way they spend their money more efficiently, I guess, towards one single effort for the entire airport. And I'll give you an example. In my previous life, I used to work in New York City for the Port Authority of New York and New Jersey. One morning at 3 o'clock in the morning, there was one crew laser scanning the subway system that connects New York and New Jersey, the path. And two crews meet in the middle of the tunnel. So one asked the other, "What are you doing here?" And one said, "I was hired by the construction department to laser scan the tunnel." "What about you?" "Oh, we were hired by operation and maintenance to do a laser scan of the tunnel." So they paid twice for the same information. So connecting all these different groups, I guess, is key to push into the same direction, I guess.
That's a great example. I see a lot of redundant projects.
Yes.
You know, and a lot of different business units have their own kind of needs, and, oh, we'll just do it ourselves. Even leadership will kind of say to multiple stakeholders, "This is my problem." And whoever solves it faster will be benefited from solving it. But it leads to a lot of inefficiencies too. So whenever you can communicate clearly and know all your stakeholders and identify those, wait a second, we're already tackling that, or we already have a solution, or we already have a platform for that. You know, we have 500 platforms. It's insane. But, you know, how do we get to a place where there's enough good communication so that we make those good decisions, right?
Absolutely.
Yeah, so just to add to that, so I think to resolve the data silos, you need to come up with structured data so you can easily validate the data. We work in the AEC industry. We have BIM, CAD, and GIS. Sometimes they don't all communicate together, right? So you might have something very rich in data like BIM, but you only need maybe 4 of those attributes in GIS, and they're named differently, right? So how do you map that and tie it all together? So that's where we use ETL platform like FME to validate that data.
Yeah, and actually that's a big challenge when you start to bring in a twin. What's the asset name, you know, from the CMMS? Well, what is the device name from Niagara? Right. And you start to bring those, that's a lot of work. Yeah. So that registry is really important. Yep. And be able to draw the line to connect those. And you can build standards for the future, but we're still stuck with 50 years of data. So what do you do with that? You have to figure it out. So there's work involved.
Absolutely. Well, that's a good segue into our next section on data governance. So, I mean, we all know the technology is only as good as the data that goes into it. So what are some of the governance structures or standards that you've implemented to ensure data quality? And maybe, Nora, you can speak on that one.
So I have a saying in my department, is that our mission is to deliver the right data to the right people at the right time in the right format. And so we have people using multiple systems of engagement at the airport. Some people need to use GIS, some prefer or need to use BIM, some people are using CAD, we've got folks in Maximo. And so really it comes down, everything, my whole name comes down to keeping the data up to date. You know, my boss nearly had a stroke when she found out that we're about $8 million in to this digital transformation, and she was like, "Oh my God, how are you going to keep this data current? We weren't able to keep the data current before. How are we going to keep the data current now?" And so, but establishing that data governance process, the change management process, critical. I can't even underscore that enough. That's critical to having a functioning digital twin, but also identifying a BIM coordinator or hiring a BIM coordinator for your organization, not just slapping this job on to somebody else's task is very key. We've heard folks talk about data champions as well, making sure that every type of data, your authoritative data, has a data owner, somebody who's responsible for that data. I can't be responsible for 500 different types of data. I will die. My hair will go white, and I'd have to quit because because that's impossible. So having those structures and processes in place and documented for when I quit and move to Clearwater or whatever is super important. So that, you know, after I walk away to brighter places, somebody can come fill my shoes and have an easier time of it.
So I think one thing we can add, like even since 2-3 years ago, the tool sets have changed quite a bit. And like the discovery tools you can use for IoT, auto tagging, it's phenomenal. It's a game changer. And then also looking at generative AI and running scripts on data. So I think things, if you know the tools are available and you can apply them effectively, can really rapidly change your onboarding of data, your normalization of data. So I'm pretty excited about that part. And then just putting a process in place where your data producers are holding that governance because they really truly know what the data quality should be looking like. So you got to get that buy-in for that to happen at the source.
I'll comment something. So for Miami, for instance, one of the things that we did was we developed this based on their annual inspection program, a hierarchy to uniquely identify each asset that would allow us eventually to connect it to sensors, IoT, whatever the case might be. And we use technology to automate processes, for instance, the creation of attributes on assets. We wanted to standardize the name. For instance, we didn't want one vendor to name installation date or install on or install. Those, for us, the attribute name was key. So rather than just putting it on a BIM standards manual, we created an application that would allow you to automate that and push that information directly into the assets. So standardizing and documenting, and key, policing the effort. Because if you don't police the effort, regardless of it's in the contract or not, contractors won't do it. So you need to be on top of it.
Yeah.
Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
No, I was just going to add to that, like, one key example is how many different ways you can name terminal F. Probably 12 different ways when we validate terminal F, terminal space F, terminal underscore F, misspellings. So that's part of data governance, cleaning up your data and making sure you can validate that and then push it through.
And I think we're at a reality capture conference here. We're talking a lot about BIM, but you know, LiDAR. When I first came to the airport and was looking for LiDAR, it was in baskets of hard drives. So that to me was a really big one that we needed to do business a different way. So we looked at a handful of platforms and did our POCs and decided on how we'd onboard. And we're finally onboarding all that data now, which I'm pretty excited about, but making it digitally available. So the circumstances where, you know, we're scanning from both sides of the tunnel, you know, hopefully that doesn't happen. And, you know, maybe the tunnel was scanned a third time before that and it was available, ready to go, right? And it's expensive doing these projects. So being able to know what you can leverage if you have it in hand is really important.
So scalability is huge for airports. Airports are always under construction. They're always growing no matter what the size is. So how are you all designing your digital ecosystem to scale as your airport grows or, as you mentioned, as the technology changes?
Yeah,
Yep.
Sorry.
No, I'll always speak first.
Yeah. So I'll put on my building smart hat here. So technology is changing day by day. And I think that's where IFC, you know, the Open BIM initiative can come into play when you're looking at where we're at in the world right now, where technology is always updating. Am I picking the best solution now for the future? And I see IFC as maybe that tool. The rest of the world is using it, but the US is slowly struggling to adopt it here. And it's easy to validate, right? We have out-the-box platform that can validate against IFC against standards and compliance report. So just making sure what you're adopting now will be ready for the future integration.
I think, like, don't think about investing all your energy into dumping all your data into a platform. You're building digital assets, and you need to be able to invest in the assets that can be transferable in the future. So that's a big thing, that a BIM model is an asset, it's a digital asset, whether you put it in this platform, that platform, the other. As long as things are really interoperable. I think that's really the key, is be agile so that you can shift based on technology. And the bets you make sure the vendors are keeping open with you.
Absolutely. All right. So we're going to switch to ROI and lessons learned. So Kelly, how do you balance some of those short-term wins with long-term goals like a fully realized digital twin?
Yeah, so we didn't have success on all our first projects. Taking the extra time to decide the right pilots, because we picked our oldest terminal, which had 20-year aged infrastructure on the IoT, and that was such a struggle where you had to update equipment, and it really prolonged the schedule and the cost, and it reduced the satisfaction and the trajectory of us being really excited. So really be careful on those first projects. Pick smart projects that are meaningful, that you have a champion, that you can get to some quick wins, even if it's a small amount, but then pick something you can scale fast. Right, and the one thing we actually, we had some older BIM models. We were making a decision: do we do another BIM and do one more terminal? I was like, you know what? Let's put the BIM on hold. Let's do all the terminals with all the data. Let's get as fast as we can to operation, and then let's do BIM just in time. And that's kind of what we've been doing. So we got a couple older BIM models that are going to come together, but it's going to take another year before those are done. But we're using the tool, and we're getting value today, which is good.
Let me add something. And in the case of an airport, you either have these two approaches. You either go and laser scan the entire thing and try to use that laser scan data. That is one. Part of that approach will be laser scan and model it, which is going to take a lot of time, a lot of effort, and cost a lot of money. Or, at least in the case of Miami, we put contract language. All new projects are going to be done in BIM. Yes. All new projects. No negotiation. And we're going to start building the terminal parts and pieces. As the projects evolve, we're going to start, it might happen in the next 10 years that eventually we're going to end up with a digital twin that we need to keep,
we did the same
maintain.
Thing. We did the same thing. So we know there's a few terminals, like Terminal C. It was going to be, a total rebuild. We're going to wait, and the BIM will come when the construction's done. But the others, we can get ahead of. But, you got to roadmap it, right? Because it's just a lot of work. So it's years and years of work.
How do you eat the elephant? One bite at a time? All right. So what metrics or indicators are you using to measure your return on investment from your digital transformation efforts?
I'll take one. So for us, it's two things in our calculator. It's adoption and footprint, because the tool is valueless if you're not using it, and you can't really adopt when you got 5% of your use case. So we look at the 6 projects we're doing. Our calculator increases as we get more square footage. And square footage could be assets managed or whatnot. A couple ways to measure that. And by asset type that we're monitoring. So we go HVAC and then the next. But then we'll look at the software and we'll see how sticky it is. How many users? I don't care if you got your name in the software. Well, how many times do you open it up, right? What are you doing with it? So we look at session counts. We look to see how sticky those users are. And the other thing is we have to create the behaviors. We can't just, here's a tool, go use it. So just like going to the gym, you have to build a behavior. So having regular meetings, coaching, mentoring, helping them to use the tool, getting them excited about it, and really kind of, fostering that interest.
We kind of took a different approach with Miami, with a cost savings analysis. So we didn't want to wait until the return of investment of the parking garage, for instance. So in the case of the parking garage, again, there's 3 similar parking garages right around this new one. And by opening a month ahead of time, we can calculate, in comparison to the other ones, how much money each week we will make. So that just by itself, by opening 4 weeks in advance, they were actually saving $2.5 million. And we did an analysis on clash detections, early stages of clash detections. The first clash detection that we ran was at the 30% submittal. We found 2,000 clashes. We organized them in high, medium, and low, high, and medium impact. We associated a number, and we actually ended up with 900,000 in savings. So we actually, rather than just wait until the end, we wanted to show those results to upper management to tell them, I mean, these are the results of using technology. We can save money.
Those are great examples.
I was going to say, we're saving a ton of money on survey. At the beginning of every capital project, we have to survey existing conditions, spending a lot of money surveying existing conditions. But if we already have the existing conditions in a digital twin environment or just in a BIM, it's less time and money. Do they still have to do survey work? Yes, but they're just validating against what we have existing rather than measuring every sub-inch of space.
One thing, as a consultant, when I sit down with clients, you need to be very careful setting the right expectation, I guess. Rather than going to the client and say, you're going to open this building 4 weeks in advance, we're going to be using tools to give you better predictability on the project, and just by making sure that you're going to be opening the facility on time and within budget, that is a save. So I believe setting the right expectation is key as well.
Absolutely. Have there been any unexpected outcomes, positive or negative, that have changed how you define success in your digital transformation journey?
Our use of reality capture has been repurposed so much. Our PMO, our ITS PMO, they would do almost 80 projects a year. And I'm quite an evangelist, but I'm there and I'm talk to people, well, this is how you could use it, and making sure they're aware. So we had a massive IT project in all our IT rooms. Well, the amount of back and forth that was saved by having all of that scan work already available and handing it over. But on a daily basis, we're using the data that's already there, so vendors don't have to come on site just to verify as-built conditions or equipment. So I think we didn't, I kind of thought some of this would happen, but the organization didn't realize how frequent they could use that data.
I would say a negative outcome that I've had is, I would say, engineers, not necessarily engineers, but people at the executive level questioning the amount of money that we spend on something that they can't go touch in a built environment. Because they're used to spending $8 billion building stuff that they can go out and touch, that the customers and passengers can use, but not necessarily on digital assets. And so when something comes to the chopping block, I'm fighting for my life to continue my program, and it's been fine so far, and we haven't had to cut anything. But they inevitably, look to that and they're like, well, this isn't a runway. You're not building a runway with all this money. You're not building a terminal. What do you need all this for? Can't we just do it the old way? So that's been a slightly negative. So just making sure that they continue with the support and the buy-in.
It doesn't end, right? You have to continually keep buy-in, interest, motivation. Otherwise, they can lose interest because there's a lot of money projects out there, and everyone is vying for money. So you definitely have to stay, in touch with the leaders, and they bought into the program. It's a continual thing.
Yeah, and I'll just add back to the previous question about the positive and negative. I think doing POCs, proof of concepts, is an easy way to identify what's positive, what gets positive feedback from the rest of the stakeholders, and what solution gets negative feedback from the rest of the stakeholders. So it's an easy test, right, before you go full scale.
All right, so I would love to hear from everybody on this one. What advice would you give to peers just beginning their digital transformation journey, especially, you know, when navigating the limited budgets and internal resistance that we've talked about today?
I can start here and then we'll go that way.
down.
So I think starting small, right? Like I talked about POCs earlier on, and then part of that process with proof of concept is getting early buy-in, right? It's like, hey, we're testing this out. Give me your feedback now or forever hold your peace, right? So, and then getting IT support. That's one milestone that we've often overlooked, right? We have this solution, we're just gonna start it tomorrow. Nope, it's gonna take 2 months because IT has this strict review procedure.
Yeah, cybersecurity will shut your project down so fast. But my piece of advice is, and I said this a little bit earlier, but know the hot button issues of the person who controls the money, and kind of use that to leverage your way into a project. But also start out with projects that you yourself are really passionate about. One of the first kind of digital transformation projects I started working on had to do with trees, which nobody thinks of trees when they think of the airport. But I could speak really passionately about it for like hours. And people are like, oh man, she knows what she's talking about. And then they just give me their money. So that's good.
Wow, I'm gonna learn more about trees. I didn't know so profitable. I think, you know, the biggest thing is to try to latch on to a goal of the organization that's like a high-level goal. Because when you can align your digital twin program with the vision of the airport and where they're going, it's really important because that alignment aligns with their initiatives. Start small, but start with the business purpose to scale. And do it with something that's going to be high value, right? Not just, you know, a buzz on. I'm actually not going to say it, but there are certain things that we say we want to do because it's good for the airport or good for other purposes. But where's the dollar value at the end of the day? And the leaders do care about the dollar value. So it has to scale. It has to be able to generate a profit.
Early victories
Or
are
savings. Savings or a profit, one or the other.
early victory is definitely our key, but I will concentrate a little bit more on the people. I believe it's key to give at least in the case of Miami, the design project manager and the construction project manager, give them the recognition of being the ones pushing the projects to be a success, and have them present them in front of upper management and said, it was not a consultant, it was those guys that make this happen because they truly believe in technology and they need to get the credit. So for us, key is people. So we concentrate a lot on that.
That's so critical that you facilitate and help, but make it theirs. And that is really, really important, but that's a good share.
All right, thank you all. That was really great advice, not just for airports, but for all industries.
All right, thanks, everybody.
Everybody.
Thank you so much.